Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 3 2024 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this past week, after having such a hot start with my straight-up predictions through Week 1, going into this week, let's just say the Fanatic leveled back down to reality, leveled back down to earth a bit. It definitely was a frustrating week. Definitely a lot of surprising upsets with my straight-up picks that I didn't expect. Though a few of my spread picks I ended up picking with the underdogs ended up winning big. I just was surprised how big they won. And I know for a lot of people with those points that got them, especially with a couple of the games, you won those games easily and you could have covered with a 10 or 15-point spread, which is surprising. But the overall, though, who would have thought if you would have told me that the Minnesota Vikings and the Seattle Seahawks would be 2-0 and the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals would be 0-2? Nobody could have told me that. Nobody could have told me that the Vikings and Saints would be 2-0 and the Ravens and the Bengals. Okay, maybe the Bengals in a way, because the Bengals have had a bad history lately of not playing well week 1 and 2. So, hey, Bengals fans out there, if you watch, don't be that alarmed. You do this. You've done this for the last few years. It's okay. But that's how crazy the league is. That we have those two teams at 2-0, those two teams are at 0-2, and then just a whole bunch of mid or good or bad, either way, regardless of what you think. The Panthers look like the absolute worst team in the league. The Saints look like the absolute best team in the league. The Eagles still running into the problems that they had from last year. The Cowboys are still pretenders. The Bucks look solid. The Lions look, so many crazy things. And I'll get into all of them throughout my picks and video this week. All right, but let me tell you, everybody, how I did last week overall. Last week, against the spread and straight up, I was able to stay above 500 or 500 with both, so I will take that. So definitely against the spread last week, I went 8-7-1. The one push was I took Seattle -3. Seattle ended up winning by a field goal, so there's the push. And straight up, I went 8-8, 500 even. Definitely a crazy week. I thought, not a lot of people had New Orleans beating Dallas. Not a lot of people had the Raiders beating the Ravens. Not a lot of people had, some of the other games, how they went. Nobody had it. A lot of people didn't have Atlanta beating Philadelphia, especially the way it ended. Packers, Colts, that was odd. But some of the other ones, Giants, Commanders, even though I got that one right, that was nip and tuck. Rams, Cardinals, nobody, I think people were impressed with the Cardinals. But people thought with the Rams offense, the way it was going, that they would have actually done better. But then, of course, they couldn't, and then Cooper Kupp got hurt, and the offense just died. But that's crazy there. But with the offensive line just being shot to what for the Rams, I think that's a brutal loss as well, or brutal tough spot as well. But yeah, going against the spread 8-7-1, straight up 8-8, 500, I will take that for how crazy the week was. So I got my head above water, which I will gladly take that. But now, overall through 32 games against the spread, now I am 16-13-3, and straight up now I'm 22-10, so that equals 54.7% against the spread. And straight up now, after having that 84.7%, to get the 68.8 through 2 weeks and having plenty of time, I feel pretty good that hopefully I can bounce back this week and do a lot better. So, but again, it equals 54.7% against the spread, and straight up now, that equals 68.8% straight up. All right, it's time for my picks for Week 3. So on Thursday, when the 1-1 New England Patriots travel to New York to take on the 1-1 New York Jets, the New York Jets are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the New York Jets here to win straight up, but I'm going to take the New England Patriots plus 6.5. And then on Sunday, when the 0-2 New York Giants travel to Cleveland to take on the 1-1 Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Browns are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Cleveland here minus 6.5 and Cleveland straight up. Then the next game in the battle of former Tennessee quarterback versus current starting Tennessee quarterback, when the 1-1 Green Bay Packers travel to Tennessee to take on the 0-2 Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to go on a bit of a run here with taking. I have a lot of games this week where I'm taking the underdog outright. So this is one of them. I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers here plus 2.5 and the Green Bay Packers straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-1 Chicago Bears travel to Indianapolis to take on the 0-2 Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are 1.5 point favorites in this game. Give me the Chicago Bears here plus 1.5, and the Chicago Bears straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-0 Houston Texans travel to Minnesota to take on the 2-0 Minnesota Vikings. The Houston Texans are 2.5 point favorites in this game. Give me Houston here minus 2.5, and Houston straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-1 Philadelphia Eagles travel to New Orleans to take on the 2-0 New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are 1.5 point favorites in this game. Give me New Orleans here minus 1.5, and New Orleans straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-0 Los Angeles Chargers travel to Pittsburgh to take on the 2-0 Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 2-point favorites in this game. Give me, in a slight upset here, give me the Los Angeles Chargers here plus 2, and the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. The next game, when the 0-2 Denver Broncos travel to Tampa Bay to take on the 2-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 6.5 point favorites in this game. Give me Tampa Bay here minus 6.5, and Tampa Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-2 Carolina Panthers travel to Las Vegas to take on the 1-1 Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders are 5.5 point favorites in this game. Give me the Las Vegas Raiders here minus 5.5, and the Las Vegas Raiders straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-1 Miami Dolphins travel to Seattle to take on the 2-0 Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks are 5 point favorites in this game. Give me Seattle here minus 5, and Seattle straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-2 Baltimore Ravens travel to Dallas to take on the 1-1 Dallas Cowboys. The Baltimore Ravens are 1 point favorites in this game. And another slight upset here. Give me the Dallas Cowboys here plus 1, and the Dallas Cowboys straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-1 San Francisco 49ers travel to Los Angeles to take on the 0-2 Los Angeles Rams. The San Francisco 49ers are 7.5 point favorites in this game. Give me San Francisco here minus 7.5, and San Francisco straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-1 Detroit Lions go to Arizona to take on the 1-1 Arizona Cardinals. The Detroit Lions are 3 point favorites in this game, just like last week. And any Cardinal fans out watching, I have appreciated what you did, and Kyler Murray and the management definitely talked about getting the ball to Marvin Harrison after the conversation, after that quote he said after Sunday in week 1, where he said it wasn't his job to get Marvin Harrison the ball. He had 4 receptions and 130 yards and 2 touchdowns within the first quarter. I wish from a fantasy perspective, since I had him, they would have kept going to him, but the way they were beating the Rams like a drum, it probably didn't matter. But just like last week, I will take the Arizona Cardinals here, plus 3. I'll hedge my bet with a small number, but I will take the Detroit Lions here, straight up. Then the next game, the Sunday night game, with the 2-0 Kansas City Chiefs travel to Atlanta to take on the 1-1 Atlanta Falcons. The Kansas City Chiefs are 4.5 point favorites in this game. Give me Kansas City here straight up, but I'm going to take Atlanta plus 4.5. Then the next game, when the 0-2 Jacksonville Jaguars travel to Buffalo to take on the 2-0 Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are 5.5 point favorites in this game. Give me Buffalo here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Jacksonville plus 5.5. Then the next game, in the final Monday night game in a doubleheader, when the 1-1 Washington Commanders travel to Cincinnati to take on the 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are 8 point favorites in this game. Give me the Washington Commanders here plus 8, but I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals straight up. Alright, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The New York Jets over the New England Patriots. This is a game to where, when you look at what the Jets did on Sunday, they played a fundamentally solid game. Feel bad for Jermaine Johnson. He tore his Achilles and he's out for the year. One of their first round picks from a couple years ago. The Jets defense forced 2 huge turnovers. I also want to shout out Jamin Sherwood for having 12 tackles in the game. And Breece Hall had 114 scrimmage yards. So a very nice all-around game there. Also, though, I do have to say, for Will Levis, that's 2 weeks in a row where he literally made, I believe, the stupidest play of the weekend that cost the Titans some points. And you definitely could know that was angering the Titans coach because he basically told Will Levis in no pleasant terms, WTF are you doing? Which, after seeing that fumble at the end there, that was fair. Also, I do want to shout out for the Jets, though, Braylon Allen, the youngest player in the league, caught a touchdown from the oldest player in the league. Very nicely done there. So, again, I thought the Jets played a very sound, solid, fundamental game. And I guess here's the thing, though. I think the Jets, at the end of the day, look, they have just gone on this losing streak up until the last week of the year last year, where they lost 17 straight games to the Patriots. I don't think the Jets are going to keep running up the streak there, but I'm pretty sure they don't want to have to go into the next week, the next game going, man, we've lost 18 of our last 19 games against the Pats. And I just feel like, again, like when you look at the Pats, I do have to say this stuff. Ramondre Stevenson, top 5 runner in the league. The Pats have a top 5 rushing offense and a top 5 running defense. They play sound football. Hunter Henry had his first 100-yard game as a New England Patriot and his first 100-yard game overall since 2019. Which is crazy. And, you know, when you look at this game, I'm going to take the Jets because when you really look at it, I think the Jets just offensively for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers hasn't been the Aaron Rodgers of Green Bay or even 22 Green Bay the last time we saw him play. But he's been the most competent quarterback the Jets have had since Sanchez. And that's saying something. And I think he's been playing better than Sanchez did his first couple games as well. So, as long as you have that, even though losing Johnson's big, I just feel that Aaron Rodgers should be able to make more plays against the Pats defense, and I believe Jacoby will against the Jets defense. It's just, again, could the Pats defense, if they get enough pressure on Rodgers, and, you know, there were moments, and Jacoby doesn't turn it over, could the Pats win? Sure, I think they could. Maybe. Maybe they could. But objectively, though, I honestly, you know, don't know how that is, going to go. But I just, when you look at this game, Pats, Jets, very good, solid defenses, solid running games. Comes down to it. Trust Rodgers and the offense to move the ball a little bit better compared to the Pats in a tough, gritty AFC East type game. I'm taking the Pats plus 6.5. And shout out to Andrew Warren out there, buddy. I'll give the Pats that. They're going to make it more competitive than people think. So that's why I like New England here, plus 6.5 at the New York Jets straight up. The next game, the Cleveland Browns of the New York Giants. This game here, look, the Giants lost the game where they scored 3 offensive touchdowns, but they lost by 3 because they gave up 7 field goals, which is nuts. Malik Neighbors played well, and I think one problem the Giants had was that Graham Gano, who was dealing with a groin injury in the beginning, ended up hurting his hamstring, and now he's out for a few weeks, and they had Jamie Gillan, their punter, come out, and he missed 1 extra point, and Brian Daboll, with the tiny stones that he has, said, yeah, we're screw kicking. We're just going to go for 2-point conversions every time. Could not get a single one, and that basically cost them the game in terms of missing the 3 points that could have got them going into overtime at the end of the game. I do want to shout out to Micah McFadden, though. He did have 13 total tackles. But here's a crazy stat, though. Chris Boswell of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the kicker, through his own foot, has scored 1 more point than the New York Giants have through the first 2 games as an entire offense. They've scored the second fewest points in the league. And, look, I think the Giants, you can take some solace in seeing Daniel Jones on offense somewhat look competent. But all that confidence goes away this weekend when you play the Cleveland Browns. And I'll explain why. The Cleveland Browns, it wasn't pretty. It was grimy. It was gritty. It was, Jim Schwartz putting up a fantastic game. David Bell having a big 30-yard reception, but he ended up getting hurt. But Jerome Ford and Deontay Foreman having 106 rushing yards combined. The defense getting 4 sacks on Trevor Lawrence was significant. And I just think, again, the Browns know their formula. If Deshaun doesn't turn it over, and they can run it, and Deshaun can make a few timely plays to Cooper, to Judy, to Moore, to Bryant, because I don't think Njoku is playing, because he could be playing, he's still dealing with an ankle sprain. I just think the Browns have a better defensive line pressure. I think Deshaun will play quarterback a bit better, and I just trust the Browns' weapons against the Giants' defense, which we saw get cooked by the Vikings in Week 1. The Browns could just have kind of multiple ways of grinding out a game, to where I just see with the Browns' defense, the way it's played through the first couple weeks of the way they looked against Jacksonville. I think the Jags have some better weapons than the Giants do, and I feel like the Browns' defense can kind of clamp down and make it a really one-dimensional game. And I think the Browns can just basically copy that formula they had against the Giants and put it against the Jags and put it out against the Giants, and they should be able to win it that way. And also, I just feel like, again, that Browns defense is going to make Daniel Jones' life a living you-know-what. And it's going to be miserable for him, and I just trust the Browns to grind out and just have, with the better weapons they have, talent and quarterback, to win this game at least by a touchdown. And it's going to be, the second home game for him. The Giants coming out to Cleveland. Dayball's had some history in Cleveland, I think, if I remember. So, he's got a little bit of familiarity with the area. But the Browns, just tougher team, much better defense, a better quarterback, can carbon copy the game plan they had against the Jags, and I think they get another solid victory against a bottom 2, bottom 3 team in the league. So that's why I like Cleveland here, -6.5, and Cleveland straight up. The next game, the Green Bay Packers over the Tennessee Titans. This is one to where this game is really even for me because of the quarterbacks. Both teams, their running games are solid. I think the Titans have better receivers. The Packers are a better tight end. Both have solid secondaries. I think the Titans have a little bit of a better pass rush. Like the teams look about even, minus some things here or there. I think the Titans have a better kicker. The Titans also, I think, have a better secondary. But I think the Packers are a better front seven. It just comes down to, in this game, what coach and quarterback do I have more trust in to win the game? And it's going to be Matt LaFleur and probably Malik Willis for the second straight week, or Will Levis and Brian Callahan. I'm going to take, in that regard, I also do want to shout out Malik Willis. I have ragged on the man consistently on this channel. He finally looked like a competent quarterback. Even though, again, I do want to acknowledge I'm only giving Malik Willis like 15% of the credit. Like 15. Because Josh Jacobs ran for 151 yards. Josh Jacobs was the offense of the Packers on Sunday. Not Malik Willis. He did finally throw a 21-yard touchdown to Dontari Wicks. So, good job, Malik. You actually can throw the football into the end zone. You can do, the main job what a quarterback can do. But when you're playing against Anthony Richardson, who still looked incredibly raw, you did better. And I do want to shout out the Packers defense. They did get 3 interceptions on Anthony Richardson, which was huge as well because they won a turnover game. Though Matt Gay missing a 50-yard field goal, frustrating there. And it's just where with the Titans, Calvin Ridley scored his first rushing touchdown, was nice. And the Titans have the number 1 pass defense in the league in terms of yards per allowed through the air. So I think there's a credit to the Titans management for improving that secondary. But just watching Will Levis make 2 horrific errors that, if you really think about it, the Titans could easily be a 2-0 football team. And again, the first one was more egregious because that basically did decide the game. The second one was early, and they were still kind of hanging around. But, when you think about in the grand scheme of things, that play really did cost them the game because that cost them at least some points that basically the Jets were able to take advantage of at the end. And, could the Titans win this game? Sure, and again, the Titans secondary is pretty good. The Titans kind of have some comparable weapons, and Levis, I feel like, has moments to where he just throws some better footballs. He's got a little more touch. He's got a better arm, a little more consistency. But when it comes down to the mental side of the game, I just think I trust Malik Willis and Matt LaFleur not to make a boneheaded mistake or a incredibly odd decision. That I don't know if, you can really trust. But, and that's why I'm going with the better coach here and the less, mistake-prone quarterback. And in that instance, it's Malik Willis and the Packers. And with Matt LaFleur. Could Callahan win this game? Sure. There are a few games this week where you genuinely could coin flip it either way, and I don't think people would be that surprised. I wouldn't be, at least. And this is one, again, where if people took the Titans, you could say, look, the Titans have looked more sharp. Malik Willis got benefited from a huge running game. The Titans, shut down their passing game. Or could the Packers run it down the Titans' throats? I don't know. But in this kind of game, I'm going to go with the better coach and the less mistake-prone quarterback, and that advantage goes to the Packers after what I've seen. So, all right, Malik, don't let me down here, buddy. This might be the only time I pick you, and I'll be, if you lose, I'll be praying for Jordan Love to get back, because if he's not back by week 4, you are not beating the Vikings, which would be a big hole for you, for the Packers to beat. So, that's why I like Green Bay here, plus 2.5, but Green Bay straight up. And, no, Green Bay plus 2.5 and Green Bay straight up. The next game, the Chicago Bears over the Indianapolis Colts. This is a game to where the Bears and Colts, you are genuinely looking at almost two mirror images of solid defenses. Obviously, the Bears defense has played better, but offenses that with quarterbacks that just have all the athleticism and talent in the world, but they just don't seem like they have it all together as a collective group. And, look, the Bears on Sunday night against the Texans, Caleb Williams was getting his rear end kicked by the Houston Texans defensive line. He got sacked 7 times. He's been sacked 9 times through the first 2 games. There is no way he makes it out alive and healthy, or makes it out healthy, if he keeps getting hit that often under that much pressure. They cannot run the ball at all. So DeAndre Swift, behind that bad offensive line, looks like a terrible investment. Khalil Herbert looks non-existent. And they have the fewest passing yards in the league. So definitely that thought of, which I will fully acknowledge, I definitely don't think now Caleb Williams is going to become the first ever Bears 4,000-yard passer. It's going to have to take at least another year and probably 2 or 3 good offensive linemen. To back that up. And, look, they missed Keenan Allen, who's dealing with a heel injury. I don't know if he'll play. And Rome Odunze, who did play, he's not 100%. And I just feel like he doesn't have that much trust in DJ yet, or Cole Kmet, who has basically been non-existent in the offense as well. Even though I do want to shout out Cairo Santos, 3 for 3 for 50-plus yard field goals. So he's probably been one of the better parts of the offense. But the reason why I'm going with the Bears is Anthony Richardson, and Colts fans out there, you can be mad at me, need to watch, that kid's not good. Like, I know you need time to develop and grow, but, people talk about a raw quarterback, like if you think about meat, okay, he's not even, the cow after it's done. He's still the cow. Like, he is that raw. He is completing only 49.1% of his passes. 49.1% of his passes. And essentially, I would also tell any Colt fan this, Anthony Richardson can only throw long balls. He's essentially a power hitter in baseball as a quarterback that, like, if you ask him to do a quick game or a mid-level drag or cross, I don't think he can hit them that often. It showed pretty much that, in the short game, 4th and 4, in a big spot, which I thought Shane Steichen in the corner was a moron for going for it. He threw it out to Jonathan Taylor, and, you could argue Taylor dropped it, but, it was incomplete because, again, Anthony Richardson only throws long balls. That's the only thing I've seen him do anything good through the first 5 or 6 games of his career. And, look, Matt Gay missing that 50-yard field goal, it would have been a 16-13 game, but the picks were really bad. And it's weird because I feel like looking at this game, it's a genuine coin flip, I think, for this game. And again, whoever you watch and make predictions, I could see half of the people taking the Colts. He has a little more experience. The offensive line, they're at home. There are plenty of reasons to go with the Colts. But I've just seen more promise out of Caleb Williams in the first couple games than I have seen out of Anthony Richardson. Like, Anthony Richardson, again, I just feel like is a home run hitter in baseball in a quarterback's uniform. He can hit deep balls. I've seen him make beautiful deep throws, and I know he's athletic. But can he actually play the position on all 3 levels of the game? And that I have not seen, and I think against this Bears defense, I think that will be the problem moving forward. Again, it's going to be a real gritty, great Midwestern, Chicago, Indianapolis, the liberal and conservative kissing cousins of states of Illinois and Indiana. It's always a great battle with Chicago and Indianapolis. But I'm taking the Bears here. Better defense. Trust Caleb to make a little bit more noise. And I just think Richardson, he'll make 1 or 2 throws or 1 or 2 decisions that I think Caleb will. And I think the Bears win because of that in a nail-biter. So that's why Chicago here plus 1.5 and Chicago straight up. Next game, the Houston Texans over the Minnesota Vikings. This is a game to where the Houston Texans, to me, okay, I've watched both Texans games, both Vikings games. The Houston Texans have played pretty much solid, consistent football through the first couple weeks. The Texans are a very complete team. C.J. Stroud 7 straight games without an interception, which is the longest active streak in the league. Nico Collins leads the league in receiving yards at about 250. Jalen Petrie and Jimmy Ward have played very well. They got, like I said before, they sacked Caleb Williams 7 times. And I feel like with the Texans, though the Joe Mixon injury is significant, which means Dameon Pierce will have more of an opportunity if Joe Mixon cannot play. This is one of the more complete teams in the league. And I just trust the fundamental nature of the Texans as a brain trust, as an organization moving forward. I have that trust. The Vikings, I will acknowledge that. I do want to shout out a man by the name of Patrick Jones II. He's had 4 sacks in the first 2 games. He's already had a career high in sacks within his 4th year on the Vikings. And to be fair, the Niners for the last 2 years, Brock Purdy, he seems to have a very tough time playing against the Minnesota Vikings. Again, you could argue Christian McCaffrey wasn't in both those games. That could have made a difference. Well, he wasn't in one of them. Debo wasn't in one of the other ones. But for his career, he's had 2 touchdowns and 4 turnovers against the Vikings in his career. So the Vikings defense under Brian Flores has done a very good job in keeping Brock Purdy not that effective. I also want to shout out Jalen Naylor, who might start becoming the 3rd option for the Vikings with Justin Jefferson getting paid, who had a big 97-yard touchdown. Hopefully his quad, is okay and he can get healthy. But again, the Vikings, I think I'll admit this, I was wrong. As you can see now, like with this video angle, I put the Vikings on that part of the wall right there. I didn't think they were going to be any consistent threat to this division. And now after the first couple weeks, looking at this team, I'm like, okay, the Vikings are going to be around throughout the year. And I think, they can definitely get a winning record and maybe make the playoffs. I'm not going to be that surprised if the Vikings keep playing the way they do, that they can win, they can be a playoff team. But I do think, though, there is one genuine question you have to ask. Is J.J. McCarthy's long-term future in Minnesota, does he have a long-term future? Because I actually genuinely believe in what the Minnesota Vikings have done. And I think Sam Darnold, the way, if he keeps playing like this for the rest of the year, remember, he doesn't have to worry about J.J. at all. I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to have a quarterback controversy on their hands at the end of the year. Especially if Sam Darnold continues to play well. And again, this game, I'm not trying to downplay what the Vikings have done. I would probably say out of, all the undefeated teams in the NFC, they would be 3rd. I trust you more than Seattle, but you're not New Orleans and you're not Tampa. Okay, so, or you're not Tampa and you're not New Orleans. But, so in this game, if you can beat the Texans, then you're going to have everybody's attention. And I would say this, you play the Packers next week. If you beat the Texans, I'll probably take you all to beat the Packers regardless if Jordan Love plays or not. I don't think that's going to happen, though, but, in this game, I'm going to go with the better quarterback, the better defensive structure, and the better talent, and that all goes with Houston. Sam Darnold's had a good run. Sam Darnold, could have a good year. But against this Texan team, even though I kind of said the same thing about the Niners, I think the Texans, they have more at stake. They're healthier, and I just feel like the Vikings, can copy that same exact formula against a younger Stroud who has much more talent around to make plays. So that's why I like Houston here, -2.5, and Houston straight up. The next game, the New Orleans Saints over the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a game to where, look, the Eagles now have won 4 games over the last 2 years. In the final 2 minutes, they've allowed 120 points within the last 2 minutes over, the last 2 years, which is the worst in the league. And I also do want to acknowledge this. Saquon Barkley, people are going to yell at, he should have dropped the ball. Do people realize that Saquon Barkley's led the league in drops as a running back for the past 4 seasons? So maybe it's not that surprising in a big spot. Saquon ended up dropping the ball. But, Giant fans out there, are most thrilled. I also do want to say the Eagles cannot generate a pass rush to save their life. Bryce Huff, who they paid $45 million to, in 2 games, has a grand total of 1 assisted tackle. The man has not hit anything in Philadelphia besides pads and maybe some food. Okay, pads and food are the only things he's hit. Because he hasn't actually hit an actual human being on the football field solely by himself yet through 2 games. I do want to shout out Jalen, though. Jalen Hurts, I thought, had a very effective, consistent game. He had 85 rushing yards, with the most rushing yards he's had in the game since week 2 of the 2021 season. But again, the Eagles' aggressiveness really cost them in this game. They had an opportunity. They were driving on the field. Saquon was averaging 9 yards a carry in that first drive. And what happened was that, in my opinion, they should have taken the points. You should take points early and just accept that so you don't have to worry about those decisions late. Because when the Falcons drove down the field in about 65 seconds, that was incredibly stunning, because that basically showed me, I'm like, okay, can the Eagles respond? But it's like, if you got that field goal in the beginning of the game, you would have been up by 2, and it wouldn't have mattered if the Falcons scored at all. Being up 9 compared to being up 6 basically would have ended the game regardless of what happened, and you probably could have been more aggressive of going for it on 4th down at the end of the day. So, also Jalen Carter did have, 4 tackles through 2 games, so he's not making that much of an impact, so far. And I think this Georgia Bulldog composed defense definitely isn't bringing back the investments that Howie Rosenthal would have been through his second year so far. And the reason why I'm going with the Saints, though, is that the Saints, Clint Kubiak, the Saints offensive coordinator, former passing game coordinator for the Niners, son of Gary Kubiak, he's been around the league, he knows the Shanahan system. He's put that system into New Orleans, and that's changed offensive life for the Saints in the beginning. They have scored touchdowns, or they have scored on 15 straight possessions to start the season. They started against the Cowboys scoring 6 touchdowns, which was an insane mark. Alvin Kamara has 290 scrimmage yards. Rashid Shaheed is averaging 18.8 yards per reception. Derek Carr is probably the MVP through the first 2 weeks of the year. He's basically leading in every statistical mark that you could have for, a franchise. And I would say, for Saints fans, this is the first time in the post-Drew Brees era that I actually think you guys are a legitimate team. I still don't think you win the division, but you guys are going to be around, and I think you can, and probably will if you keep playing this well, be a playoff team, which I think would be huge for New Orleans. Again, their cap situation is still horrible. And, but in this game, just and with the A.J. Brown injury still looming, and with him saying that he'll probably be out a couple weeks, I would just double team Devontae Smith and say Dallas Goedert, Jahan Dotson, all you other, Grant Calcutta, Kenny Gainwell, all your other receivers, try to beat us. Because we don't think you're going to be able to, and I think with that Saints offense, I don't think the Eagles defense stands a chance trying to move that ball against a Shanahan-style team that definitely knows how to play the Eagles on a consistent basis. So, I just think the point total is very nice. And also, the other fun key fact, the last time Philadelphia won in New Orleans and won was back in 2007. So the Eagles haven't won in New Orleans in over 17 years. And I just think, with the way these two teams are playing today, I don't think that streak ends this time around either. So that's why New Orleans here, -1.5, and New Orleans straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Chargers over the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a game to where I am taking the Los Angeles Chargers because I trust Justin Herbert to outplay Justin Fields in this spot. The Chargers, look, they've committed to the run. They're the number 2 rushing attack in the league. J.K. Dobbins finally looks like the second-round pick that the Ravens drafted him back in 2024. He has 266 yards rushing. Quentin Johnson has 2 touchdowns already this season. He finally had his first solid game of his career. He only had 2 touchdowns all of last year. But here is my problem. Okay? And I will admit, I am a Russell Wilson fan, so I may be a little biased. But everybody thought in Pittsburgh, with Russell Wilson and his calf, it's over. And here comes Justin Fields, who's getting his opportunity, and he's just going to immediately start, and he's going to change life for Pittsburgh. Let me tell you, everybody, and again, I'm saying it now, I'm a little biased, it really hasn't. This team has been on 21 offensive drives through the first 2 games. They've scored 1 offensive touchdown. To put that in perspective, Kenny Tiny Hands Pickett, he had more touchdown drives through the first 2 games, with basically the same talent. Okay? You know, and look, this is what Mike Tomlin does. Okay? He grinds out wins. Since Ben left, or actually probably since 2019, you watch a Pittsburgh offense and you go, ugh, it's not pretty. It's not sexy. It's not bright and bubbly and New Orleans or Miami or San Fran. It's just pounding, physical, grinding to a halt, and it gets you a blue collar respect. But it's not enough today. And look, they've only allowed 8 points a game the first 2 weeks. They've also forced the second most turnovers in the league, which good for them. That's helped them keep in these games. But I genuinely think for the first time that Justin Herbert and the Chargers can score, wait it here, 14 points. They can score 14 points. And once the Steelers defense realizes, oh no, we are playing a competent quarterback. You could argue again, he hasn't had to do a lot, and you could argue, it's kind of the Joe Shane line. Are you, you're paying a quarterback $52 million to hand the ball off to J.K. Dobbins. I don't think that matters at the end of the day. But it's like, oh, wow, the Chargers actually could put some points on this defense. What will the offense do? And I just don't think, with how the offense is going, with how the offensive line's been playing, and the other offensive struggles, I just don't think the Steelers have enough firepower to respond. Because you're telling me, again, if this game gets into more of an offensive style game, what quarterback do I trust more to win and make more plays? It's Justin Herbert and the Chargers. I love what Jim Harbaugh has been doing, and I think, this could be the moment where I, put my heart with the Chargers, and just like I do every year, they just choke it away at the end, and we might have to give Pittsburgh their genuine credit for at least handling their business, and Justin Fields can continue to start through the 3-0 start, even if his numbers are mediocre at best, and I would say I'd probably give him a C to a D plus for like how well how mid he's been playing. But we'll see. I just think again, when the Pittsburgh Steelers defense finally has to play an offense that can generate more points, I think that I just don't think that the Steelers offense can respond in kind in a good way against a solid Charger defense, which right now is number 1 in points and number 2 in yards, or even though, again, you could argue that's competition. But at the end of the day, both teams are about the same. I'm going to trust Justin Herbert to make a few more plays and make some big-time throws compared to Justin Fields. So that's why I like the Los Angeles Chargers here, +2, and the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. The next game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Denver Broncos. Easiest game of the week. Tampa Bay, consistent, gritty performance. Got 2 huge interceptions on Jared Goff. They played incredibly well. I was impressed. And I just look at Denver. They're not very good. They could not run the ball at all. Bo Nix is a rookie, but he's a 25-year-old rookie. He still has a lot of room to grow, and he still looks like Bo Nix, the quarterback we saw at Auburn, the quarterback that everybody had questions of. He's probably not a first-round talent, but, you believe in Sean Payton. And also, again, Denver! Congrats for getting Sean Payton! The man that, idiotically looked at the game and said, hey, we're down 10 with under 2 minutes to go. Let's kick the field goal, boys and girls. Yeah. Isn't that the Sean Payton you all loved for being, the creative play caller? Ooh, look at that. Quitting on the team. He basically said to everybody out there, that kid, that 25-year-old kid, we cannot trust. Also, by the way, he threw Cortland Sutton under the bus, which I thought was horrible. That was a horrible interception to Bryce, and he's like, well, Cortland Sutton had his hands dirty too. No, your bum of a quarterback, Bo Bum, instead of Bo Bon, the basketball player, Bo Bum Nix over there, that has made some pretty horrific decisions. And now you're playing a Tampa team that's been probably one of the more complete in the league, and he's probably going to continue making bad decisions, and you're just going to look at it going, Sean Payton, and this is a genuine question I would ask, have you lost your fastball? Because you've now had Russell Wilson, Jarrett Stidham, and Bo Nix. An older proven veteran, a journeyman young guy who's never really had an opportunity, and a young guy, and the offense still looks like crap. It still looks like dung. It's awful. And you are the only person that's connected to every single one of those quarterbacks. So when is it going to be time for the Walton family to use some of that Walmart money and say, hey, did we make a bad investment in getting a guy in Sean Payton who, was a bit overrated through, most of his time and, only really did anything with Drew Brees? Because ever since Drew left, he was basically about a 500 coach. And he's kind of showing now he's still about a 500 coach. Just saying, but to get back to, the game a bit here, I'm taking Tampa. Just, again, more complete team. They do have some injuries they have to worry about. Rashad White's big. But I just don't think any of that matters against the Denver team that just doesn't look that great and doesn't look that inspired to play through the first couple weeks from what I've seen. So that's why I like Tampa Bay here, -6.5. Tampa Bay straight up. The next game, the Las Vegas Raiders over the Carolina Panthers. This is a game to where I am taking the Las Vegas Raiders here based on the fact that the Raiders showed a lot of resolve in a gritty, ugly game against the Ravens. Gardner Minshew, fun fact, he's leading the league in terms of completions and completion percentage. He's completing 77.5% of his passes. So, again, if you're telling me right now what two teams have gotten the most bang for their buck in terms of their quarterback, I would probably tell you Gardner Minshew and Sam Darnold. The amount of money those two guys are making on their 1-year deals or 1 to 2 year deals and the play they're getting definitely justify those contracts to feel like steals for what production they're giving. Also, by the way, Brock Bowers, an absolute stud. He is already, in my opinion, the second best weapon on that team. He was just killing the Ravens throughout. And Max Crosby, he definitely obliterated our offensive line, which is a big concern for the Ravens moving forward, but, I digress. But the Raiders right now, the reason why I'm also going with the Raiders is because from what I saw out of the Carolina Panthers and what I've seen this week from the Carolina Panthers management, there is no, I think, debating this point. The Carolina Panthers are the worst run team in the National Football League. They're the worst team in the National Football League. I feel horrible for Bryce Young because I would say this, Bryce Young never got a fair opportunity to have a competent roster around him. They traded away his best talent. And, the idea of watching him through 2 weeks, again, was it great? No, it was horrifying to watch through 2 games. But the fact you're telling me in 18 games, you decide to bench your number 1 overall pick that you gave up the whole future for the Bears is just really depressing. And I blame David Tepper the most because he's the worst owner in all of football because he is that impulsive and he just doesn't understand that he doesn't have a roster to win. But at the same time, Dan Morgan, the guy that he knew with the coach, and Dave Canales, okay? You guys get some heat here too. Because you two guys don't understand what you are. You're not the Ravens. You're not the Eagles or, you're not these teams like the Lions that have these lofty expectations. You're the gosh darn Carolina Panthers, for God's sake. And the fact that you two feel desperate to try to win with a 36-year-old Andy Dalton is just really pathetic. And you know what? Dave, I hope you can work wonders of Andy Dalton. Because you know what you realize, Dave? You know what you had in Seattle when you had Geno as the quarterback coach? DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. You know what you had last year when you were the Tampa offensive coordinator? Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Try winning with Deontay Johnson, Tommy Trimble, and Xavier Legette. All right? And try that with a 36-year-old quarterback. And when you get your rear end kicked by the Raiders this weekend, maybe realize, you know what we had if you got the job? We had talent around the quarterback. It doesn't matter if Andy Dalton comes in there. Will he play better than Bryce? Sure. But it's not going to make that much of a difference, and you're not getting fired anyway. Okay? You're not getting fired. Maybe Tepper is that bad. If he does get fired, sure. Then nobody should want to work for that idiotic owner in Carolina. Nobody should if he gets fired after a year. If Canales gets fired after a year. I didn't mind Frank because I thought Frank sucked, but that's a whole different story. But, but again, I'm taking the Raiders here. Better team, better defense. Just trust the organizational trust. I trust Pierce. And I think the Raiders, for, their home opener, they're playing a Panther team that might feel a little confident, but they also might just be playing a broken franchise that just doesn't know how to confidently do things. So that's why I like Las Vegas here, -5.5, and Las Vegas straight up. The next game, the Seattle Seahawks over the Miami Dolphins. Very simple here. I'm taking Seattle because Miami lost to them. I think both, Seattle, I would tell everybody this. Seattle is a team that, I said before, I've always made a reference to the Titans were like the white toast with butter of the, of the NFL. I feel like Seattle has earned that distinction in the NFC. Like, I think Seattle, for everything that's there, they're not getting talked about enough. How well Mike McDonald has done with this roster. Because I've watched Seattle's 2 games, and I've come away going like, that's a sound, good, fundamental football team. They don't make that many mistakes. They've dealt with injuries. Geno has played incredibly efficient and consistent football. And I think, again, Seattle just has that. They just have that ability that I have trust in. Miami, look, they have all the talent, but with Skylar Thompson probably starting, I don't have faith that he can do that, especially going into Seattle. You're telling Skylar Thompson, like in his 3rd or 4th start, hey, you have to go into Seattle and try to win a game, even though you might have better talent. I just don't think that's going to work. The offensive line looks shot, and I think, again, like, Geno should be able to outplay Skylar Thompson with the talent they have, Could, if Tyreek or Waddle make a few big plays, if Mostert plays, like, could they outrun some of the Seattle defenders? Sure, they could. But I just think with Skylar Thompson and his history, with the inability that he's shown consistently time over time, I think the Dolphins are going to have a serious question about, do we need to get a veteran backup in here? Because Skylar Thompson's not the answer, and if Tua was out an extended amount of time, I just don't trust the Dolphins making the playoffs at that rate. So, again, the game should be interesting, but I'm taking Seattle here. Really consistent team. A bit underrated in my eyes, even though if you told me out of the undefeated NFC teams, I probably would put them 4th. But I do think Seattle does get to 3-0, just basically playing another consistent, solid Seattle-based game, even if Kenneth Walker cannot play. So that's why I like Seattle here, -5 and Seattle straight up. The next game, the Dallas Cowboys over the Baltimore Ravens. Very simply here, I do not trust the Ravens' offensive line. And I've seen the Cowboys. The Cowboys have had a high in the Browns game. They had a low with the Saints game. I don't know exactly who the Dallas Cowboys are. The secondary got shredded by Derek Carr. They gave up 6 straight touchdowns. CD had a big touchdown. And Dak, after playing effectively in his first game, even though they didn't need him to be that way, they could have won the game without him. I just feel like I know what this Cowboys team is. And if they have any gumption in their, their hearts, if they have any tingle in their loins, they're going to respond well against a Raven offensive line that has just been obliterated by both defenses so far. And again, in the Ravens offense, we're not giving Derrick Henry maybe enough carries at a time, and we're not really showcasing a lot of other great, offensive talents. Justin Tucker can't hit a 50-yard field goal to save his life. And I just trust in this game. I think the Cowboys' defensive line should be able to whip the Ravens' offensive line, which means Lamar's going to be running around for his life. There's going to be some rough decisions made, some bad throws. And I just trust we don't have the best receivers. And I just don't think, unless Andrews and Likely dominate the game through the middle of the defense, I don't know if the Ravens can effectively move the ball through the air or the ground. Or, the best thing we ever have to try to do is basically just run it down their throats, which I hope we do. But I just don't think we're going to commit to that plan. And I just, knowing our defense, yeah, we might have to only worry about CD, because Ferguson's out and they don't really have a tight end. And Tolbert's okay. But at the end of the day, I trust the Cowboys' defensive line to cause enough havoc. And I just think the Ravens, in kind of key situations, will be able to, make a play to stop them. So, we'll see. Should be a great game. But I'm taking the Cowboys here because of the Dallas offensive line dominating the Ravens offensive line, causing the Cowboys to get a to grind out a very solid win there. So that's why Dallas here, +1, and Dallas straight up. Next game, the San Francisco 49ers over the Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Rams offense is in the infirmary ward. Their offensive line's in the infirmary ward. And Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and Tyler Higbee are in the infirmary ward. So even though the Niners, they have their own injuries themselves with Dre Greenlaw, Christian McCaffrey, and Deebo Samuel. In that case, though, at least they still have Brock Purdy. They still have Trent Williams. They still have Ayuk. They still have Kittle. They still have some talent out there to play. With the Rams, with how bad that offensive line looks, with how bad they're banged up overall as a whole unit, I just can't trust that the Niners defense can't just maul Matthew Stafford and limit that offense to very little anything. Because even when they were trying that last week, against the Cardinals, they couldn't do anything against it. But now with Cooper and Puka now gone, and Higbee gone, besides Tyler Johnson and DeMarcus Robinson, who are the Rams going to throw the football to? And is Matthew Stafford going to have enough time to throw the football? Usually, again, Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, usually it's always weird where I think Sean McVay has been the better coach, but Kyle Shanahan always got wins. This time around, the Niners aren't even 100% at full strength, but it's just okay, who are the Rams going to throw it to? Can the Rams actually run it? And can Matt Stafford, and if the Niners, just have the confident weapons they have, can Brock Purdy make some similar throws that Kyler Murray did against that weaker Rams defense? And the answer to me is yes. And he played well the last time he played the Rams in his first game at SoFi earlier in the year, but I just trust that, easily just because of the Rams injuries. So that's why San Francisco here, -7.5 at San Francisco straight up. The next game, the Detroit Lions over the Arizona Cardinals. This is a game to where, look, I respect what the Cardinals have done, and they are a better team than I thought. I just think at the end of the day, the Lions' defense of Aiden Hutchinson played really well. I think he can get through that Cardinal offensive line. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball as effectively. Connor had 122 yards and a touchdown last week. And I just trust the Lions. If I had faith in the Lions, they should be able to go into Arizona and play a defense with the weapons they have and Jared Goff playing the way he's had. Again, he had a tough game against Tampa last week to be able to outshoot Kyler Murray in this offense. I think that Lions secondary has been pretty good. I think, if they can pretty much limit Marvin Harrison, there's really not that many other big weapons outside of Trey McBride for Kyler to throw to. And I just think the Lions, they have resolve, and I think Dan Campbell's going to learn from what happened before. Amon-Ra's injury is a little concerning, but it looks like he should be able to play. And I think, again, the Lions I think, are the better team than the Cardinals. I'm going to take the Cardinals +3 because I genuinely believe the Cardinals are, playing much better than anybody thought. But I'm going to take the Lions here, more experience, trust the coach a bit more, and I just think the Cardinals' defense will not be as lights out as it was against the Rams, because at least the Lions have a healthier offensive line and a healthier receiving core to go into battle with against Arizona this Sunday. So that's why Detroit here straight up at Arizona +3. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Atlanta Falcons. This is a game to where, look, the Falcons, Kirk Cousins silenced a lot of critics, including me, by having that drive against the Eagles. Though it is crazy, they did say he only had a 0.7% chance to win after the field goal was made, but the Eagles played prevent, which irritated the crap out of me. And I just, I thought the Eagles blew it more than the Falcons won it. But hey, for Kirk Cousins, for the Falcons, that's the kind of drive that you want with those weapons. Also, Bijan Robinson having 96 yards is impressive. I do think, though, I think the Chiefs win just because I just trust what the Chiefs do. I think if they sign Kareem Hunt, the Pacheco injury is a significant injury for the Chiefs with regards to how I don't think they'll be able to effectively run it unless they bring back Kareem Hunt. I also think the offensive line for the right tackle, Matt Judon and the other pass rushers are going to get, some decent pressure. But at the end of the day, for the Chiefs' first road game, they're going into the Mercedes-Benz Dome or Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's an indoor stadium. The Chiefs, know the environment there. They're going to see a lot of red. It's just not the red they have. And I just trust the Chiefs here just to win this game. Like, I thought playing the Ravens and the Bengals were going to be two of their toughest opponents to begin the year. But now it's like, well, like now you're playing a Falcon team that, oddly enough, they're the first team that's actually won a game. But I just have very little issue, or I have very little confidence that the Falcons, in another primetime spot, Kirk Cousins can come in and beat the defending Super Bowl champs at home with that defense the way it's going, even with Pacheco out. Should be a great game, and losing Pacheco definitely was the reason why I took the Falcons plus 4.5. But, you know, in this game, I can't go against Mahomes. I can't go against this defense, even with the Pacheco injury. I just hope they would add another receiver due to the Hollywood Brown injury, likely costing Hollywood Brown the year. So, that's why Kansas City are straight up at Atlanta plus 4.5. And then the final two games, the Buffalo Bills over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Josh Allen is better than William Lawrence. That's what it came down to. I look at both these teams and go, you know, they're kind of similar in their receiving makeup. The Jags have pretty much lost two closer games. The Bills basically capitalized off the Dolphins' horrendous turnovers. The second game and the first one, Josh Allen won the superhero mode to beat the Cardinals with his 4-touchdown performance. And it just came down to me, the Bills are a bit healthier in terms of just confidence. It's a home game for them. And it just came down to, for me, which quarterback do I trust more to win this game? Josh Allen or William Lawrence? And I told myself, I think Josh Allen comes in and wins this game. That gets the Bills to a 3-0 start, which is surprising to me because I will say, the Buffalo Bills can win the AFC East this year, even in their rebuild year, which is crazy because I don't think anybody expected that, you know, to begin with. But due to the circumstance and just how the rest of the division is looking, it definitely feels good that the Bills, I think, are back firmly in the division race, regardless if you were like me that had the Jets or not. So, also, one last thing about Jacksonville. When are we going to, everybody out there, William Trevor Lawrence is mid. Okay? He is a mid man. Okay? He's not great. And honestly, out of all the quarterbacks that got paid, he's the worst one. Because he's been out there. He's been out there. Jordan Love's hurt. Tua's hurt. They both looked kind of, Tua, and I can talk about Tua, separately if anybody wanted me, my genuine thoughts about what happened. But Tua's hurt. Jordan's hurt. Dak had, a decent game. And he has a win. William Trevor Lawrence is just that. He's mid. He's not this prince that was promised and not this golden-haired savior that everybody thought he was. And everybody wants to try to keep saying that he is. He's just not. William Trevor Lawrence is mid, and he is facing down the barrel of an 0-4 start, which will probably get his coach fired. And then you're going to be looking at a $55 million quarterback going, what do we do? And how appealing is it to have Trevor Lawrence as your quarterback at that salary? It's not to me, especially in Eastern Florida. So that's why I like Buffalo here to win straight up at Jacksonville plus 5.5. And lastly, the Bengals over the Commanders. This is week 3 like it was last year. Just like last year, Monday night game in Cincinnati. A Washington team and a Ram team that, the Rams are 0-2 themselves. This was a team that, had a little bit of confidence. The Bengals finally kind of put it together in a grimy, gritty game. I think T. Higgins will come back. I think, their secondary should be able to limit the Washington offense. I think Jane Daniels is going to have a rough time trying to move the ball, especially with that pass rush, the way it's going. And I just think the Bengals start their climb back up, just like they did last year, and they're going to, you're going to go into about week 8 or 9 and say, the Bengals are back to being where they are, so that's all I can say about that. So, but that's all like Washington here, plus 8 though, but Cincinnati straight up. But those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page to see other great progs like Half Moon's Picks, Andrew Warren, Geo Knows, all those guys and gals that make predictions like I do, Robert's Sports Show. And that is it. So until next week, everybody, good luck to all players, coaches, teams, fellow prognosticators, and fantasy players. And until next week, this is Matt the Automatic signing off. Next week, the video should be shot on Monday. And I will have the video out by Monday evening. So until next week, everybody, so long.